Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and Hazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Monday afternoon as we are hitting highs in temperatures throughout the country, heat waves throughout. Hazak Baruch, everybody, and let's just get even hotter with the fire of Torah. Woo! Okay, let's go to Pirkei Avot, chapter 5. We are doing today a new Mishnah, Mishnah 19, if you're following us in a hard copy. If you are following us along on the shared screen, then you will have to bear with me, and I'll let you know in a few seconds which Mishnah it is. It's going to be chapter 5 on the shared screen. It's going to be Mishnah 16, Tet Zayin. Let us go and study a very beautiful Mishnah. Here we go. The Mishnah says something that we know today after living in today's world is so obvious. Kol ahava, any love. Ahava means to love something. Kol ahava, any love, and that's a word that's used very, very freely today. The word love, it's all about love. Love, love, love. Okay? So, what is love? How does love endure? How does love last? So says the Mishnah, Kol ahava shehi teluya bedavar. If your love of someone or something is talui, depending on davar, if it depends on a specific cause, batel davar, betela ahava. The second that cause is gone, the love is out. Veshe'ena teluya bedavar, but a love that does not depend on a specific cause, ena betela le'olam, will not ever leave. So the Mishnah is basically telling us that if your love is based on something, your love is temporary. If your love is not based on anything, then your love will last forever. And as an example, the Mishnah moves on, and it says, Ezohi ahavat bedavar. What is an example of a love that's talui bedavar? What's an example of a love that depends on a specific cause? Zo ahavat Amnon veTamar. That is the love of Amnon and Tamar. We'll come back to that in 1 second. Veshe'ena teluya bedavar, and a love that is the true type of love that's going to last forever is the ahava of David and Yonatan, the love of David and Jonathan. So let us again just understand what's going on in our Mishnah for a second. Okay, here is the Mishnah, and it's telling us that if your love depends on something, if there's a motivation, then your love's not going to last. The second the reason you love someone, what's the reason you love them? Sometimes the motivation could be money. Sometimes the motivation can be looks. Sometimes the motivation can be because they do me favors. If that's the motivation, if that's the reason we love someone or we love something, then be rest assured, you may love them for another 5, 10, 20 years, that's fine. But the second that thing that you love them goes away, the second the reason is gone, the love is gone. So if you love someone because of their looks, then the second they don't look good anymore, we stop loving. If the reason we love someone is because of their money, then maybe I don't need their money anymore. Maybe now I have my own money, so I don't need to love them. If the reason I love someone is because of the favors that they do for me, so now they stop doing me favors, so the reason to love them is gone. If I love food, the second I'm full, the love goes away, right? So if the reason I love something is temporary, if it's a temporary motivation, then once the motivation's gone, because eventually it's going to go. Because if it's a temporary motivation, no one looks good forever. No one's rich, or maybe they're rich forever, but the money doesn't matter forever. No one is going to receive favors forever. If that's our reason, if that's the cause for love, then be rest assured the love is not going to last. But if your love is not motivated by something, so what does that mean? What does that mean if it's not based on something? So then why should I love them? I should just love them for no reason? What does it mean? That if your love, you know what's a good type of love? A love that's ena teluya badavar. That is not depending on a specific cause. So then why should I love the guy? The reason you love someone is because something specific, no? So the answer is yes, you love them for a specific reason, but it's not a materialistic one. It's basically, the motivation is an eternal value that will last forever. So in one sentence, what we're learning today, why do you love the things you love? Is it something that will last forever or not? If not, then that love is only temporary. If your motivation is because of something that lasts forever, so as an example, people that learn Torah together, the Torah is eternal. People that study together, that are seeking truth. Truth is a value that will last forever. So no matter how long you're on planet Earth, so long that you're seeking truth, you will always have love. Because truth is something that is here to stay. Truth never goes away. If the reason that that's why it's very important when we marry somebody, the motivation for marriage should not be physical or materialistic things. The motivation should be goals. What are our goals in life? What are our goals in a marriage? What are our values? What's the reason we are building this home? Are we headed in the same direction? Rabbi Twersky gives a beautiful mashal. Listen to this mashal, very powerful. You know, a lot of people say that in a marriage it's key to communicate. He says it's true. Communication is very important. But there's one thing more important. He gives a story. He was once in the airport. You know those moving sidewalks? You know the moving sidewalks in the airport? It's like the escalator, but instead of up, it's straight. And you stand on it, and then you're moving slowly, right? It's called the lazy sidewalk, okay? For lazy people. Okay, you're on, imagine life could have that. Imagine everywhere you walk, the streets could be filled with those moving, that would be great, Anyways, he gets on this moving escalator. Right in front of him is a pilot. And coming the other way is another pilot. And they start getting closer, and they start waving and, hi, how are you? Oh my gosh, long time no see. So where are you flying today, right? It's like, bus drivers, when they're driving and they see like another bus driver, they open their windows, it's like this whole unwritten rule amongst, union workers that when you see your own type, you have to even with Jews, by the way, I'm in the middle of, Paris, I'm, visiting and I see another Jew. I'm like, hey, what's going on? We're both Jewish. Yes, right? You feel good when you see someone that's like you know what I'm saying? And, anyways, this pilot sees another pilot, they start talking. And they're communicating, and they're having great conversation. Until they start moving a little bit further and further and further away till they were way too far anymore to speak. So here they were able to communicate fine. But what happened that they stopped being able to communicate? They were heading in different directions. The number one advice we could give our children or ourselves when they're getting married, when they're looking for that partner in life, find someone that has the same goals. Because if you have the same goals, then you know what? You're going to get into the fight. You're going to get into fights. Marriage is filled with arguments. And it's going to be very hard to stay together with somebody that I don't really have the same goals as long as, right? If the goal is me, if the reason I married them is because they satisfy me, once that's gone, and they start making my life a little bit miserable, and they start making it a little bit uncomfortable, I can't. You're so stubborn. You're so difficult. I don't know why I'm married to you, right? Why should I stay married to someone? If the reason I married them was for me, and now they're not satisfying me anymore, so why should I stay married to you? But if the reason I married you was not for me, if the reason I married you was for a goal, we're here to do something, we're here to build something, so it gets difficult and maybe annoying, but it's not a reason to break up, right? So take a look as an example where the word ahava is written in the Torah. And I believe it's the first time, maybe I'm mistaken, correct me if I'm mistaken, I'm taking a guess right here, the first time the word love is used in the Torah? Anyone want to take a guess? Give it a couple of seconds if you want to take a guess. Where's the first time in the Torah it uses the word love? Way before Shema. Shema is all the way in Va'et Hanan. Again, I may be wrong. I'm just guessing right now. I didn't look this up. But I believe the first time Ahava is written in the Torah is with Yaakov and Esav and Yitzchak and Rivka. Remember Yitzchak and Rivka, they had two children. One was Yaakov, one was Esav. One was good, one was bad. And the Pasuk tells us, Vaye'ehav Yitzchak et Esav. Yitzchak loved Esav, Verivka ohevet et Yaakov. Rivka and loved Yaakov. So listen well, I'm going to say the Pasuk again, and listen to the verb. Vaye'ehav, to love. Yitzchak vaye'ehav, he loved Esav, past tense. Rivka ohevet Yaakov. Rivka loves Yaakov in the present. Yitzchak's love for Esav is written in the past. Rivka's love for Yaakov is written in the present. Why? Why isn't it not consistent? Yitzchak loves Esav, Rivka loves Yaakov. And the answer is very good, because the love that Yitzchak had for Esav was talui badavar, was dependent on something. And what was it dependent on? Why did he love Esav? The Pasuk itself says, he loved Esav, the next few words, ki tzayid befiv, because he fed him game, because he brought him food. That love was not free. It wasn't because of a spiritual reason. Yitzchak loved Esav because of something physical. Food is physical. It's temporary. And once the food is satiated, once the desire, the appetite is satiated, once the food is finished, the love is on hold. The love goes on the back burner now. Yitzchak's love for Esav was not eternal. It was in the past, so to speak, because he only loved him for a physical, mundane reason. Verivka loves Yaakov for no physical reason. The reason she loves Yaakov is because of spiritual. And if that's your motivation, if it's of a timeless value, you will love them forever and ever and ever. Rabbi Twersky over here, he says something very, very powerful. You know, there is a word that is used, and again, it's a topic of our Mishnah. And this Mishnah, he says, it defines this word that's used so freely today. It's a word that's used so frequently, and it's the drive behind much of our behavior and what we do. And that is the word love. And yet, as important as the word is, as much as it's used today, most people don't know how to define love. Go ahead. Who wants to take a guess and define it? If your child came and said, Dad, Mom, help me define what I think I'm feeling love. Could you help me know? I just want to know how to spot it. I just want to know if I'm feeling love or not. Could you please explain the word love to me? What am I supposed to feel when I love someone or something? Rabbi Twersky brings a beautiful story. The story that we said many times before. The story is about the Kotzker Rebbe. He once saw his Talmud eating a piece of fish, but not just eating it with drooling. He was eating it and eating it and eating it. Anyways, the Rebbe says to his Talmud, he says, "Wow, you really look like you're enjoying that fish. Why are you eating that fish? Why do you have such a smile?" He says, "Rebbe, I love fish. I love fish." And the Rebbe says back, "If you love fish, why'd you kill it? If you really love that poor animal, why'd you take it out of the water away from its family? You don't love fish. You love yourself. You love how the fish makes you feel. we live in an age of fish love. Rabbi Twersky points out that marriages, you would think are so successful today. It's all about love. And all of the movies reminding us about love and happily ever after. And yet the divorce rate is higher than ever. What is going on that all of a sudden our marriages are not lasting? And he says because unfortunately Western civilization and the world that we live in has fish love. It's a fake love. We don't have real love. We don't have the real love that the Torah wants us to have. The Torah's word of love. Love in English, unfortunately, is infatuation. When I'm obsessed with someone, but not because of them. I'm obsessed because of what I think they're going to give me. I'm obsessed because of what I think they're going to make me feel and the pleasure that I'll receive from them. That's a very selfish love. You don't love that person. You love yourself. You love how they make you feel. In Judaism, we, like was pointed out before, very well, very correctly so, the Torah writes that we have to love God. Now, how are we supposed to love God? I can't see Him. I can't touch Him. I can't hug Him. I can't kiss Him. We say it every day in the Shema. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha. You shall love God. How do I love God if I can't hold Him? Hashem, I want to love you. Come here so I can hug you. I want to give you a kiss. I want to show you my love. Obviously, this tells us that love has nothing to do with those things. In English, the proper way to translate love, you ready? Is devotion. Devotion means how much I'm dedicated to something. The way to measure love is not a feeling. I'm sorry to tell you. Love is a verb. And the translation of that verb is to be devoted, to be committed. When the Torah says to love God, it means to be devoted to God. Not for yourself, not for self-centered reasons, but to love and be devoted to someone for their sake. When a person's in a relationship, when a person's in a marriage, of course there are perks to marriage. Of course there's gratification. Of course there are things that I gain. There's benefits. When I marry someone, I get now someone that can bring money home, or that will, be there for me, cooking me dinner or doing the chores, whatever the relationship is, whatever the agreement is. Of course there are benefits to a marriage. But that shouldn't be the goal of why we got married. When the love is of the devotion type, if the reason we love someone is because we are devoted to them, for them, we'll be able to tolerate any discomforts or displeases that are in the way. And so what is an example of this type of love that's not good? And what's an example of love that is good? The Mishnah continues and says, well, an example of love that's no good is Amnon and Tamar. Amnon is David HaMelech's son. Tamar was David HaMelech's daughter. So Amnon and Tamar were brother and sister, but half, from a different mother. David HaMelech had many wives. Amnon came from one wife, Tamar came from a different wife. Okay? And he had many other sons. Shlomo HaMelech was a different, right? Anyways, David HaMelech had two children. One was Amnon and his half-sister was Tamar. Tamar, he was infatuated over her. Amnon needed to satisfy his desire for his half-sister, for Tamar. So he asks her, he tries to hint, she's ignoring him, till finally he does this whole ruse, he does this whole plan where he commands her to come over and to cook for him. He orders everybody to leave, and when he's alone with her, his lust was intense, and he gratified it in a horrible way. After he was done, the pasuk says that not only didn't he love her, But his hatred was so much for her after he was finished that it exceeded the prior love that he had the first time. And I'm sure many people can relate to this. When we have this temptation, we could have an attitude towards an object or a person, it doesn't matter. And our desire, and we know that this thing maybe is not right for me, but we have such a strong desire and urge to gratify that temptation, that all of the negative feelings are outweighed. Even though we know this person is bad for me or this item is bad for me, but my drive is so strong. And we go ahead and we satisfy our urge. And when the impulse is gratified, the only thing that remains is the feeling of failure. The love is gone. And we can't even bear to look at that person or to look at that thing. A person is tempted to do a drug, and we know it's wrong, we know it's bad, and then we give in. And afterwards we feel horrible. How could I do that? What's the matter with me? This is a negative type of love. By the way, where does that feeling of, where does that drive come from? That temptation. Why do we have it? Why do we have that urge? The Zohar says something very powerful. That Hashem created people in the Tselem Elokim. And we are in the image of God. Right? Every one of us is created in the image of God. What does that mean, we were created in the image of God? We look like Him. Like He has a nose and two eyes, right? We look like God. That's not what it means. God doesn't have a body. We don't look like Him. But what it means is that we have features and characteristics of Hashem. One of the main things that we know of Hashem is that He is a giver. God has pure kindness. Chesed, olam chesed yibaneh. Why did God create us? Why did God create the world? Again, not to spend too much time on this, but God created all of us and all of this for one reason, to give us. He is the greatest giver, and He is altruistically a giver. Not for Himself, purely to give. And so we have this divine attribute of chesed inside of us, this want to give. However, because we have free choice, sometimes we use this drive of giving and we misdirect it to give ourselves. You understand that? That was very powerful. That was a very important point. Sometimes we can misdirect this positive force called chesed, and instead, because we have a yetzer hara, we make it chesed that's selfish, to receive. We turn it inwardly and we become, instead of the giver of chesed, we want to become the object, the recipient of chesed. And this was the level, by the way, that Avraham reached. Avraham was selfless. All of his chesed, all of his giving was for the other person. And that's why he got rid of he got rid of Avodah Zarah. Because what's Avodah Zarah? When I worship not just a God, Avodah Zarah is not to worship a little statue. It's something that's a little bit more powerful than that. Avodah Zarah is worshiping myself. When I have an urge and I want to eat something or I want to do something that I know maybe God doesn't allow, but I want to do it, so I worship a God that will allow me to do it. Baal allows me to do it, so I worship him. Why? I'm really worshiping myself. I'm doing whatever I want. Right? That's what real Avodah Zarah is. And so, you think, our civilization, we would never, do something so foolish like idol worship. Right? They were primitive. They worshipped idols. Today, we're so much smarter than that. We would never worship idols. But take a look at our society. When we legalize every urge that we have, and we legalize drugs, and we legalize prostitution, we legalize different activities, to legalize something that we know is wrong, and to say, no, it's okay, is Avodah Zarah. It's now turning something that I knew was not okay, and I'm now making it okay to satisfy my craving. Right? That's what legalization, that's so scary today. People say, Rabbi, what's the big deal? Everyone's doing drugs anyways. What's the difference? Whether it's legal or not, it's not going to matter. Everyone's doing it. It matters because till now we thought it was wrong, and at least we called it wrong. At least you believe in God. You may go and do averot, but at least you know it's wrong. And we come back at the end of the year or the week or the month, whenever, and we say, Hashem, I'm sorry, it's wrong. But once it's legal, there's no more guilt. There's no more conscience. That is a love that's for myself. The love that's altruistic. A love that's not dependent on anything. At least nothing temporary. A love that's motivated by true spiritual, timeless values is the love as an example. It's the love of a devotion that endures when I'm devoted, not for me. Amnon wanted to satisfy himself. So what happened the second he was with that girl? The love was gone. Because he wasn't about devotion. Many times you speak to Chatan and Kala. Why do you love her? Why are you getting married to her? Rabbi, I love how she makes me feel. That's a very selfish type of love. So you don't love her, you love yourself. You love how she makes you feel. And part of the biggest problems, unfortunately, is that when Chatanim get married, when Kalot get married, the rabbis do not teach them the laws. They teach them the laws of marriage and how to act when your wife is nida, etc. But unfortunately, we don't spend enough time teaching them the philosophy of marriage. And by the way, this has to be taught before they even start dating, or else it's too late. Or else they're caught up in fish love. Or else the reason they got married is for the wrong reason. What are you going to do now? Undo it and tell them to break up with her? People have to know. We have to remind ourselves. We have to remind our children, our communities, that love is about being devoted to someone, to something, to devote it to that cause, to be a giver. That's the reason we get married. And that's the only way the marriage will last. And it's the same with God. If the reason I love God, listen to me well, please. If the reason I love God is because God gives me and God does for me, you can know this well. That love will not last forever. Because what happens when God all of a sudden does something that's a little bit hurtful? What happens when God does something that we don't agree to? What happens when chas v'shalom there's death, or there's suffering, or there's loss, or there's pain? All of a sudden, whoa, God, what happened? I loved you because you did, but now you stopped doing, so I stopped loving. That can be our reason that we love Hashem. Our devotion to God, our love for God has to be because we are devoted to doing for Him, not because He gives us, not because we receive. I'm devoted to God for no reason. That's the only way that love will last. And that is the love that existed as an example between David and Yonatan. David and Yonatan on paper should have been arch enemies. They were opposites. Yonatan was the son of Shaul HaMelech. David was the one who was going to take the kingship from Shaul. Yonatan is next in line. David is going to take the Malchut from Yonatan. There's nobody in the world that Yonatan should hate more than David. You're taking the kingship from me. Not just my father, from me. I'm next in line. And yet we study the books, we read the stories, and we know and we realize how much they loved each other. Yonatan sided with David against his own father. He went so far to save David's life. When David was running away, Yonatan went to see how his father's feelings were, what they were towards David. And he did the whole test with the arrow. Not for now, the story, if you don't know the story, but go study it. And he shot the arrows and he hinted, David, run away, run for your life. My father's coming to kill you. If they loved each other for selfish reasons, then that relationship would have converted to one of hatred, bitterness. but they remained devoted until the very last days of their lives, because their love was not based on selfish reasons. They loved each other for the right reasons, for the other, devoted for the truth. And when that's our motivation, when we have a goal, nothing is personal. And so there's a lot more to talk about, but I think we have enough on our plate today to ask ourselves, what kind of love do we have for our spouse? What kind of love do we have for God? What kind of love do we have for the people around us? Is it a selfish type of love? Is it a love that's driven by something that's materialistic or physical? And if yes, then we have to work on changing that, because that's a very dangerous type of love. It's not a love that's going to last forever. Whether it's with people or Hashem, it doesn't matter. To realize that the only love that endures is when it's a love that's based on devotion. To love means to give. To love means to be dedicated. I am devoted to this for no reason, at least not a physical one. That our motivation should be spiritual. Those loves, those relationships will last forever. We'll stop over here. We'll see you, God willing, tomorrow. Bye-bye.